Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Tech Allstars Podcast. Today, I had a great conversation with Jordy Leiser, the CEO and co-founder of Jump, a company that a few months ago raised a 23 million Series A round from some pretty A-list investors, including 776, Courtside, and Will Ventures. Jump provides a unified fan experience, especially focused on ticketing. And in the conversation, Jordy talked about how Jump delivered this unified experience, this unified solution to the Minnesota Timberwolves in less than 5 weeks. That sounds incredible to me. We also got into the actual solution, why the solution is really relevant right now, and their upcoming plans. A really good sign for me when specific solutions are developed with such maturity to serve the sports industry. Plenty more to come. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with Jordy, CEO and co-founder of Jump. Jordy, thank you for taking the time to be on our little podcast. First up, a simple question. Tell us a bit about yourself and what exactly does Jump do?
Sure. Yeah. My name's Jordy Leiser, the co-founder and CEO of Jump. I'm an entrepreneur, been building businesses, specifically enterprise software businesses for almost 20 years now. And originally from Denver, Colorado, lived in New York a long time, and now I live in Los Angeles. And Jump came about 4 years ago through a conversation I had with my mentor, Mark Laurie, and his burgeoning business partner at the time, Alex Rodriguez, as they were looking to buy a professional sports team. And the three of us started jamming on different ideas about what kind of innovation we could bring to the world of professional sports if they in fact did buy a sports team. And it did not take very long to pull the cover off of what the technology and the operations and the fan experience, most importantly, was like today for a sports fan and that a sports team offered. And it was just wholly inadequate relative to the things that we all experience in our daily lives outside of our sports fandom. And so we started looking at the game day, before the game, during the game, after the game. Of course, ticketing is a huge part of the experience of going to a game. And it just became clear that there wasn't a central nervous system or some sort of unified platform that sat at the center of a sports team to engage their fans and connect the mobile experience, the digital experience, the ticketing experience, all the other commerce activities, things they might buy from a team, and enable a team to truly go direct to its fans. And so that was the big vision for Jump. And then Mark, one of his early insights was looking at all the empty seats up front when you're at a game or at an event and saying, well, those seats are empty. Why can't I jump up into those seats and pay some price at some point during the game? And so that's a big part of the story for Jump as well, is jumping up into seats, dynamically upgrading fans during a game.
I had a feeling that's where the name came from, and like say taking away the physical act of the upgrade, and let's say avoiding people actually just jumping across and taking a seat that they haven't paid for. Jump facilitates that upgrade, which I like as a use case. And we've seen these similar solutions or something around the ticketing space, which is, hey, you can upgrade in the game, right? Apart from the fact that it primarily would apply to venues which have seats, right? And I guess my question will go to, what do you do? Is it also viable for venues or sports organizations who sell out regularly? Is there something around there? Is it a more ticketing focused solution, or is this specific use case that you're addressing?
No, it's not specific at all that's just a feature of the system.
Okay.
It's a end-to-end system for sports teams, for high demand teams, or low demand teams where they're looking and trying to be as dynamic and creative as possible to fill the seats. But if you think about it, there really hasn't been anyone or any company who's come into the category of professional sports with a truly innovative new model. There's a reason for that, obviously, and there's a legacy player that has dominated the space in Ticketmaster, but there's been some attempts to come into the space as well in the US specifically. And it's just been too difficult because there's just this idea of a ticketing system, and that's completely separate and apart from all the other things that a sports team does. And so all up until this point, the history and the legacy has been that teams need to use the ticketing system of record and then kind of patchwork, fill in all the other things that they need to do. But if you run a business, that's not a compelling way to run your business. You don't want to have a patchwork of disjointed, not seamlessly connected, vendors and solutions, especially when the anchor system there isn't an enterprise software company purpose built for that category. And contrast that to an industry, like restaurants with Toast as a enterprise software technology purpose built for restaurants or for brands and e-commerce. Shopify is purpose built software, enterprise software to solve their needs and deliver on opportunities for them. And so it's just interesting to us that sports just had a bunch of different siloed vendors. One of them is ticketing, but no one actually had a holistic view of, okay, what's the true enterprise software that should then orchestrate and be the anchor digital ecosystem for all the different things that the fan touches, so that the fan gets a totally seamless experience. They're not disjointed, jumping from this ticketing company to that landing page to this ticketing vendor or whatever. And then for the team, they get a seamless set of data and insights that then can be used and leveraged, especially in this paradigm shift with AI becoming even more powerful in the future.
And it's a fair point. I mean, there were a few reasons when this popped up, came across our inbox, we were immediately interested, because I think Jump hits on multiple key trends that we at Sports Tech X are constantly tracking. One is there's a significant uptick in investment in fan-facing solutions, right? So typically across the sports tech industry, we see a split of investment. There have been about $30 billion in equity-based investment over the last 5 years. About 50 to 53% of that is towards fans, but a little under 40% towards athletes, and another 10% towards executives. Those are the three key profiles that we divide investment in. There are further subsectors and sub-subsectors. People who are familiar with our framework and our analytics
Did
will
you
be
say 10% is invested on the enterprise side, like for
on the
operate?
enterprise side. Yeah, generally.
Wow.
Exactly.
That is so
So
low.
so that's the global trend. Exactly the point, right? So there's two things that we've seen an uptick on. One is on the fan side. So that 52%, and by the way, this is a global average. This changes pretty significantly across regions, from North America to Europe and Asia. But that uptick from 52 has gone up to about 66, 67 on the fan side. And the other thing that's increased is the B2B side. So the athletes have taken a bit of a hit, but as the sports industry matures, there is more purpose-built software, exactly as you described, which is dealing with specific problems that sports organizations face, whether if you're a venue, you're a sports team, you're a broadcaster, whatever the case may be, but all usually in some way servicing the fan and trying to get the fan to have a better experience and eventually better monetization. And I think Jump sits quite nicely at the intersection of those two. Was that a conscious decision? Let's say, were you trying to find a solution that hit this problem, that there isn't good enough enterprise software and how do we serve the fan better? Or did you come at it like, hey, actually specifically ticketing or within the fan experience, ticketing is one area that we want to address and then grow into it? How did you kind of approach the problem as you were building out the product?
It's a great question. And I would say that as an entrepreneur, number one winning formula you can have is start with the user or start with the customer and their problems. You got to get out of building, you got to talk to people, you got to experience it yourself, and then work backwards in terms of building a solution from that problem. And this is a B2B2C context where obviously you have businesses and sports teams who are supporting their customers, which are fans. And the solution for us seemed obvious, that you need, again, like a Shopify-esque kind of solution where you're building technology for these businesses that then they can deploy to their fans and to their customers. It seemed like such an obvious need and problem that they're not going direct to their fans with sophisticated and modern tools the same way that every other business is, whether it's, think of your airline apps or your, whatever. I mean, hospitality,
Taxi
everybody
booking, shopping, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're used to a certain level of experience and slickness and interface, which sports apps traditionally haven't provided yet.
Correct. And that's just the tip of the spear, obviously, is the app itself, but then it's the connection and the data that flows down. And so anyway, the holy grail is to find the problem and work backwards from the problem to create the solution. And then you find yourself with a really big idea and a big business when people who are doing macro analysis sort of can point out, oh, there's a huge underinvestment in this area, or, oh, this seems like ripe for disruption, just, knowing nothing about the industry or knowing nothing about the problem. And those two things end up coming into full alignment. And so that's basically what's happened here is, we didn't start this business because we were looking for just generic business opportunities, and this seemed like an obvious one studying macro trends. It is important for us if we're starting a business that we want to look at big markets and growing markets. And this is a big and fast growing market. And I think that's also partially why in the last 10 years, 20 years ago, like this wouldn't have made sense 10, 20 years ago. There just wasn't enough monetization in sports. Obviously, the women's sports revolution and acceleration has happened in the last several years. And that is, I'm totally convinced, along with my partner, Alexis Ohanian, there's a one-way street. People are going to be investing more in the category. So yeah, it's sort of working from the B2B side and the fan side, and then marrying that with the macro trends. That's when you got something.
Exactly. And I think that makes kind of the sense that as a founder, you need the validation from the market to tell you this is a problem, but also the first person user to actually see that there is a problem on ground as well. I know that you're already, well, at least I saw recently on LinkedIn that you rolled out this product for the Timberwolves. Tell me about that use case. What exactly are you doing for them? And maybe highlight any other successful use cases where the product is in action.
Sure. This is our first year being live with the platform. So it was almost 4 years in the making of R&D. And that's very unusual for a startup to spend that many years building a product. It was originally focused on only being 3 years, and then we were going to launch with the Timberwolves. There was a dispute in the ownership transition between the seller of the Timberwolves and the now owners of the Timberwolves, which were my partners, Mark and Alex. But the punchline is that we finally got to a place where they do, in fact, own and control the teams, which is the Timberwolves and the Minnesota Lynx, the WNBA team. Mm-hmm. And we have rolled out our full unified fan experience platform for the Timberwolves and the NBA. And what that means is it's the entire digital experience for the fan, from the landing pages for theme nights, let's say, or half game, sort of theme night packs, or whatever the landing pages are, marketing, the mobile app, ticketing, dynamic ticketing concepts like upgrades, or we just launched something called first half passes for the Timberwolves, which is basically designed for families who only go for the first half, but want to sit in premium seats, but they have to leave early because they're, it's bedtime and homework time and whatever. So we've launched the entire digital journey for the Timberwolves, and fans log in with the Timberwolves. They don't log in and link with any other ticketing system. They don't even know about Jump. They are just doing business with the Timberwolves, which is a totally unique and differentiated experience in sports, at least in the US, where fans are typically forced to then link accounts or log in with, a Ticketmaster account or some other ticketing account, and then somehow merge that into their experience with the team. And then, all the different disjointed elements that come within that experience. And so all of it in one. And then on the back end, the business users log into similarly one system. And so there's one system that has a content management system to manage the mobile app. It's a ticketing system that manages all of the inventory and all of the pricing and all of the offers and all the promotions. Messaging system that we connect with other third parties that allow us to, again, seamlessly go to the fan with one face, with one brand, with one voice, and that's the Timberwolves voice. And so Jump is just invisible behind the scenes.
So just to be clear, you rebuilt the entire ticketing system for the T-Wolves and the Lynx then? Is it now all 100% through Jump? Or are you still operating with the partners? I mean, there might be legacy contracts with Ticketmaster or whoever, or there might be, because I know the venues will have, I don't know if the T-Wolves own their own venue, pardon my ignorance, because I know that in different sports organizations, there are different structures, etc. So maybe just walk me through specifically on the ticketing side, what part of the architecture are you functioning?
Yeah, we built the whole thing.
Wow. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
It sounded like that.
A team, it's small and mighty team. I mean, the big players in the category, they have thousands of employees and we have 50. And so I would make the case that, and this is the case in a lot of startups, where you might actually be able to move much, much faster and build much, much more with a much smaller team. And that's, of course, counterintuitive, but that is how it works in startups, where when you have a really small and nimble and fast and talented group of people, you can build an immense amount. I mean, it still took us years to do it, but it took us years, and we've raised a total of $60 million in capital up to this point. But we have built the entire primary ticketing stack. We've built, like I said, the flex plans. Usually there's other vendors who you have to basically engage a different company if you want to offer fans a flex pack or a flex plan where you pick these 3 games or these tiers of games or whatever. Because again, if you think about it, that's not a normal feature of a ticketing marketplace. A ticketing marketplace is designed for a one-off event. And the history and the legacy of the category is ticketing companies are designed to put on a show. And the show comes to town. They need a company to help them sell the tickets. And that's the legacy system. And so this idea that you can pick certain games to go to, or I should know what kind of seats you like, or I should have a deep understanding of your preferences, like that's not ticketing. That's software. And so what we've discovered is that over all these years, there's been this huge investment in ticketing for one-off events and concert promotion and that whole world, but nobody ever actually built anything purpose-built for professional sports teams. Everybody backdoored into it. And so we said, okay, no more retrofitting the concert platform for your sports team. You're going to go directly at the opportunity itself to give them basically the tools that they need to run their business.
It sounds like it's almost like a ground up approach. If I had to redesign ticketing in 2025 and take that product out of market, which is exactly how you describe it currently, is you buy a ticket, you go in. Right. And that it's kind of a 1-to-1 and that's all. You might get a season pass. Of course, that's been there for decades where I can either buy all the tickets one shot or I can buy one ticket one shot. And there is nothing in between. Whereas what you're talking about is, hey, you could leave at halftime if you want, which is a whole different way of thinking about a much more customer-centric way. First of all, that's the start of it. It's a different way of thinking about how we offer our tickets. A follow-up on the Timberwolves case, because it sounds like that's the first one. So again, and if you were to take that to another system, I mean, with the Timberwolves, obviously you're partners with the ownership group, you know exactly, you've been building for a while, specifically to them. As you expand to other clients, I can imagine. Sorry, so the Timberwolves one, what is it? Did they just switch to you 100% from the start of this season, or did you phase in at the end of last season? Was there a pilot, etc.? Or even this season, are you handling 100% of their ticketing, or is it like phasing up over time? How do you actually implement such a kind of revolutionary system into an existing fan base, right?
Yeah. Yes, we do everything. We
Okay.
we we were on a very tight timeline. We run all the ticketing for the Timberwolves, and when Mark and Alex closed on their purchase of the team within a week or two, we had signed the contract and begun the implementation. It was the fastest implementation, to my knowledge, in NBA history. And so it was about 5 weeks, and that's unheard of to basically start and be done in 5 weeks with an NBA scale. They have, they have millions of fans in their database. So it was an unbelievable feat to accomplish this. It was very difficult. It was very challenging. There was always a sense that this was not going to be perfect, and nothing's perfect when you're building in startups. But it went incredibly well. The first 3 games of the season, they had a homestand with the first 3 games, big games against the Pacers, which were in the NBA Finals last year, the Lakers, and the Nuggets, all top teams, and everything went incredibly smooth. And so fans were easily scanning into the games. It was faster than they've ever done in the past. Again, fans were just logging in with the Timberwolves. There was no sense of another ticketing system. The vendor that they had used previously, there were a lot of complaints about that from fans. And so it was just this just worked great. And that kind of a comment from fans is exactly what you want to hear when you're providing the technology. I'll say though that they are not our only client. So Another example is we actually launched our first client earlier this year was with the North Carolina Courage, which is the NWSL club. And they had previously been on Ticketmaster and used other vendors to do these various other parts of the fan journey. And similarly to the Timberwolves, and again, that's not Mark and Alex, that's not my co-founders and partners in Jump. This is an arm's length new customer for us. And it went just as well, in fact. And we just got, their season just ended, and they had a record-setting year in attendance this year and record-setting with the business, and the team actually did not perform well on the field at all. And so we feel really good about the impact that Jump has had. We got amazing feedback from fans. Nearly everyone that we surveyed, and we've done lots of surveys, said that this is far better than it was last year. And we know that we helped grow revenue and increase efficiencies for the club. And so it's still a lift, obviously. Any big technology provider for a business and what we're offering is the central tech stack for the team. It's not to be taken lightly that this is like, oh, in a few days you just flip it on and off. Yeah, you have to train people, you have to engage people, but we are opening up an entirely new world for these teams to basically run their businesses like a D2C business, which they certainly are.
Did you sleep at all for 5 weeks? I can't imagine that you might.
Well, what, the Timberwolves launch?
Yeah,
that was I will remember those days for a really long time. Let's put it that way.
we take more time to select our podcast software than to talk about for you to implement a new ticketing solution for an established
Yeah.
NBA team. That sounds crazy to me, especially I say that as a joke now because of what you're talking about, that obviously it was implemented successfully. And they want your first client. You've done this
Yeah. No,
before.
it
When the
was
feedback is good,
there was a lot of
but that
uh
sounds insane to me.
anxiety. There was a lot of, everybody did their best, and I have a huge amount of gratitude and appreciation for not just our team at Jump. We spent many a days and weeks in Minnesota getting them set up, but then also the Minnesota Timberwolves staff themselves as great partners, and then the NBA as well. This is a brand new concept for the NBA. And so there's a familiarity that everyone needed to get comfortable with what we were doing at Jump. And at the end of the day, if you think about where the league is sitting or where a team is sitting, they don't want an intermediary company sitting between them and their fans. They want to go direct to their fans as well. In fact, that's a top priority of many sports teams and leagues right now. And so that is the purpose of Jump. That is why we're here, to give them the flexibility and control that we think they deserve. And so conceptually, everyone is totally bought in. Then it's just getting into the weeds, signing the contract, understanding how it's all going to work. And honestly, we have to prove ourselves. And so that's what this year is all about. And so far, so good.
Again, a super important macro trend, the establishment of a clear, direct channel between this rights holder, the sports IP, whatever you want to call them, with their fan, with their core audience. And typically there's been far too many intermediaries, whether it's social, whether it's the distribution channel through a broadcasting network, whether it's a ticketing provider, whether it's a commerce provider. There is so many layers and walls between that fan and that sports org. And this is, again, part of a big trend that we're seeing, that the sports organizations are realizing that they need to go direct to fan as much as possible. One last question on the actual rollout or the implementation of the solution. A typical thing when I speak to any rights holder when it comes to ticketing is that, hey, we would love to do a lot, but our hands are tied because we've got this big contract. We've signed up with Ticketmaster to go whenever. Or as I mentioned earlier, we just lease the venue and the venue has the contract with Ticketmaster, which we don't get visibility or we don't get the flexibility to implement different types of solutions. When you have such a strong, baked in legacy service provider who maybe innovates a bit here and there, but they're not really moving at the speed of light or anywhere close to it. How do you break into that space? How do you win contracts consistently, and how do you roll out a product which is obviously raised a lot of capital and obviously working, but then still needs to go and find the market?
Yeah. Well, so I would just say, first of all, the trend is our friend in this case. The team owners are increasingly the people who are owning the buildings, operating the buildings. And so, yes, it is true that sometimes the teams are tenants in the building, and then the building has some other, sort of like higher priority. But I think what's happening, and we're seeing this for sure in the US and I think in the UK and across Europe, is that the teams are becoming so valuable, and the owners who are buying the teams are so interested in creating the end-to-end experience themselves and all the economics around the sports and entertainment district that they want to create, that more and more the team owner is the person or, sort of entity in charge. And that's the person we're selling to. That's the person we appeal most to. And so we're excited about that trend, and that fits really well for us. And then in terms of the long-term contracts, so that's who we're targeting. The long-term contracts, let's just say that the average length of a contract in the category might be 5 years with a team. There's good reason for why you wouldn't do this like on an annual basis. There's a lot of change management and there's an implementation or whatever. So does it need to be 5 or 10 years? No, but there should be some sort of multi-year deal. But if it's 5 years, that means every year, 20% of the entire industry is up for renewal. And 20% is a lot. And so as we start to meet with clubs, like this happens every day in my life, I meet with someone and they're like, oh my God, this sounds incredible. We still have X years left on our contract. And I say, okay, well, these things, most are not like the Timberwolves and happen in 5 weeks. Most of these things do take a couple years. And so we talk and we learn about each other and we meet, and they get to see what's happening with our current customers. And then as is happening right now, yeah, there's go live for them is in, 18 months and 24 months, even in 36 months. And we can start working together towards that solution. And that's fine for us. We're happy to wait.
Fantastic. Open to start the conversation, and you guys are obviously going to be around for a while to come. Jordy, what is to come for Jump? Talk to me about what the next 6, 12, 18 months looks like.
No, I mean, like I said, this is the beginning of the beginning for us. This is year one. And so I call this our rookie year. And so our experience right now is all about learning and is all about figuring out what do the fans love? What do our clients want? What could we be doing more? What are some things that maybe aren't working so well that we can improve? And it's really setting the new standard for where we think the entire category is going. And then, I mean, the sky's the limit for us. The category is so big and exciting, whether it's the big clubs and the big names that obviously have continued to grow in revenue and in value, but there's also a ton of emerging teams and leagues in every sport around the world. And so it's about picking and choosing for us, where are the spots where we think we can deliver the biggest impact and where we can find the right partners who can help us innovate. I mean, in every category, startups that enter the marketplace want to work with early adopters, and we're no different. And so I think what you'll see is the teams that we're starting to work with. We just announced that we're working with the Denver Summit FC, which is a new expansion club for NWSL in Denver. They're building a brand new stadium. It's going to be beautiful. The president of the club is a woman named Jen Millay. She was the former CMO of the Warriors. And if you just think about maybe her and her background and what she's doing in Denver and building a new stadium and brand new, it's not surprising that they want to be super tech forward. They're starting from scratch. Those are the kinds of clubs where you have people with digital DNA who want to innovate, who want to do things differently, who want to grow with a direct connection with their fans. And so we're going to be looking at wherever there's innovation in the bones of the people who are running these clubs and the owners of these clubs. Those are going to be our first customers in each league. And then, over time you get to the rest of the curve where people get more and more comfortable with new technology.
There's so many interesting macro trends that you're riding, Jordy. I mentioned this right at the top, that unified fan experience is something that we talk a lot about, and also providing that in a unified B2B experience for that operator as well, that they don't have to integrate with 5 different solutions to manage a good experience for their end fan. Also on providing a really tech-forward solution, which just works. At the end of the day, that's all you need it to do, just work.
Yep.
And if it does what it says on the box, then I think you're going to make more people happy continuously over time.
Love that.
Quick call to action. What are you doing right now? Are you hiring? Are you looking for partners? Any specific markets that you're looking to expand in? Are you fundraising? What should listeners reach out to you on?
We're definitely hiring. Go to our
anywhere in the world, or
our site at jump.com. And there's a careers tab, careers link at the bottom. You can find all the open roles, but mostly in product engineering and operations. And we're certainly engaged in conversations with teams across the US and Europe is the main focus right now. Yeah, we're also talking to leagues and people who have different hands in the investment world with portfolios of teams. And we're trying to bring in people who believe what we believe, which is that basically the legacy systems and technologies really underserves the sports teams and sports fans. And if they see what we're doing and they're excited and interested, we'd love to talk to them and figure if there's a way to work together.
The inevitability of those legacy systems being replaced by good systems that just work. I think that's a good place to...
I mean, nothing lasts forever, and if the product is beloved, then, maybe it's going to take longer for a startup or innovation to catch up. But if the product or the category is not beloved, then yeah, I think there's a ticking clock there.
Exactly. The point. Jordy, thank you so much for taking the time. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best place to do that? Your LinkedIn or your email?
Jordy@jump.com. Hit me up.
Got it. And maybe they can look you up on LinkedIn as well. I believe he is a top voice on LinkedIn, so probably has something interesting to say. You should give Jordy a follow as well. Jordy, before I let you go, I have to ask my last question. It's the one that I always end this podcast on. I like to believe that we're all sports fans first. So I want to know what has been your favorite sporting moment.
Oh, man. I have 2 that come to mind for different reasons. One was the first time I went to the Masters. I love golf, and I've always watched the Masters on TV, and being able to go to Augusta National for the first time and walk around there. I was there for an entire week, basally, of
Which year was this, and who was the winner?
It was 2012, and it was the year that Bubba Watson won in a playoff, on like a playoff hole where he hit this big swinging hook shot around a tree and ended up winning his first green jacket. And yeah, that was many years ago, but I'll never forget that experience. I also had to drive there from New York City through the night to get there because we got the tickets the day before the event. There were no flights and no hotel rooms, and we stayed like 2 hours outside of town. And anyway, that was just a magical experience going with my friends to that. And then I would say the more recent sports moment was when I'm from Denver, and so longtime Denver Nuggets fan, and the Nuggets finally won a championship a couple years ago, and I was at the game in Denver where they won I think it was Game 5, where they won the title, and it was just, it was with my best buddy, and it was just an amazing experience after all the decades of thinking, I don't think it's ever going to happen, and then they finally won, and everybody has those moments for them, and that was one for me.
I can remember Denver hasn't had too many good teams, maybe with Melo, and I think AI was there for a minute, and there was a bit of a run. But after that is when the Joker came through the door, and then you take you to the title. Fantastic.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of sports moments with I love asking this question because A, it kind of refreshes my own little sporting memory, and B, it always ends on a big smile from my guest.
What's your memory?
I mean, I've got a few Indians. I have to talk about the 2011 World Cup win in cricket with MS Dhoni, who hit the big six. I don't know if you're a cricket fan. I'm a Manchester United fan, so I have to talk about Champions League wins in '99 and 2008. I could go on and on. There are plenty in that book.
Yeah, cool.
Fantastic, Jordy. Thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate you telling us about Jump. And listeners, if you have a ticketing or, let's say, fan experience problem or just ticketing specifically a solution that you're looking for, get in touch with Jordy, get in touch with Jump, see what they're up to. I'm sure you'll find something interesting. Thank you for taking the time. And curious to see what you guys get up to.
Thank you.
All right, guys, that is a wrap for another episode. Always in the lead up to our Sports Tech VC report, which should be out in a couple of weeks after you listen to this. We're looking at interesting solutions that are being delivered in the market, raising a lot of capital, all of that stuff which we cover in the VC report. So stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, go check out our new intelligence hub, intelligence.sportstechx.com, where you'll get all that data, all the reports, the startups, the investors databases, all that good stuff in one place. Go sign up for your free account there. All right, guys, see you next week. Cheers.